Okay, a day long of learning. I'm sure you guys are having fun. I saw a lot of people really keenly listening to what the panelists are saying and were saying before this panel as well. So, the final panel, as you see, the topic is navigating inflection point and business challenges and opportunities. So, after we set up the business, after the startup is a success, all the things are in place. So, there comes a point when you have to reimagine, rethink, okay, redirect your journey. But what is that moment? What is that moment where you decide that I need to now change the gears? I need to now change the product lineup, the approach. Uh, so, Gautam, let me start with you. So, in the course of your business, how do you decide that this is the inflection point? Do you wait for the outside factors to influence and guide you, or do you have enough of insights already that now I need to change the course?
Um, Actually, I don't think there's a straight answer to that. What we believe in is, and we've been through COVID also, you have to persevere very hard. You will face 100 situations where you're forced to rethink everything you want to do, forced to think whether I should add product lines to what we do. So we had doorstep delivery of fuel. COVID में, team members would come, अब हम cylinder भी deliver कर देते हैं, हम ये भी कर देते हैं. So I think the first thing, which is very important, is true to your core. Build strength in your core, and if you feel that your business model has got a PMF, a product market fit, then keep trying. It's not going to be easy. So you have to do that. Now, coming to inflection points, we've seen a lot of them. I'll talk about one example. We launched a franchise model. Probably the first time we launched it was 3 years back. And I must say, we must have spectacularly failed in our first 5 attempts. But we kept pivoting, and there were many pivots that we applied over a period of time, and probably we're on a version 8.0 or 9.0, we lost count. But the inflection point was coming from the market. And the question is, which we were discussing earlier, is how do you really get to know the market's telling you that? I mean, you have to have a pulse of the market. You have to keep talking to them. And it's easier to talk to the franchises, more difficult to talk to the customers, but you have to have the pulse of the market. For us, it's easier being enterprise players. We deal with enterprise customers. We get to know what the customer wants because we have large customers. We're very clear that for a small subset of customers, we don't change our business model because we want to stay true to our core proposition. And as long as we feel there is a pivot to be applied, we actually don't use the word pivot. In our organization, we call it mini pivots. So keep testing it with a small change. As they say, when you go into a science lab or R&D, 4 variable change kar doge to pata hi nahi what effect what variable had. One variable at a time, mini pivot at a time, and you keep moving on. So I think the short answer is stay true to your core. Market will tell you, keep a pulse of the market, and then apply the mini pivots.
No, just a wonderful insight. I mean, not changing the entire product because of a small sample size telling you to change. I think not being tempted by those factors itself is, a big achievement and a great discipline, I might say, in a startup. Coming to you, Arnab, how do you navigate the pivot part of it? How do you read the market sentiment? What do you apply to read and get those insights and then make the pivot?
Okay, so I think I'm a part-time entrepreneur and full-time trend gazer. Okay, so I tend to spot trends, and that's my favorite pastime. Just looking at people and trying and gazing that, and most of the time I'm wrong. Okay, so but I keep doing it. So that potentially probably allowed me to become one of the very first few digital marketers of the country, and now I'm running one company which is 10-year-old and one company which is just 2.5-year-old again, which is so just for everybody to know, I run a digital marketing agency called Liquidation and a public cloud company called Digibox, which is India's first public cloud solution. Now, this essentially, it also starts with one thing we think, I think, Gautam maybe did not mention is, I think it all starts in the gut. For an entrepreneur, you tend to just start feeling something is wrong or something is right outside, right? and then we kind of look at trends, and we look at research, and we talk to others, talk to other entrepreneurs, similar conversation, people who have gone through that kind of a inflection themselves, and you try and justify that to yourself. So I think a lot starts here, for me. And I think some of the point that Gautam mentioned, I think even we don't use the word pivot. We primarily believe that as a in the life cycle of our product or the businesses that we currently run, they keep on changing its own course, because digital as a business in itself is fairly new, and it's kind of changing on a day-to-day basis. And for the longest time, my LinkedIn used to read the digital guy, because I strongly feel towards everything that is digital. And so that also gave me the chance to make a lot of mistakes, because I don't think there was anything right at that point in time. You had to keep trying. So the lot of those kind of twists and turns that came out, we kept on making those changes and see if that kind of impacted the results.
So, so you keep on spotting the trend. That's what you said, and at times it's not easy to spot a trend and get it right.
Right.
And also in your category, where there are also a lot of Me Too players, in that it becomes difficult to differentiate, right?
So, say I'm a BTech in IT, okay? So that time everybody was becoming a software engineer. I chose to become a digital marketer. It gave me immense confidence that my trend spotting is correct. And this is 22 years back, right? So somewhere I think it started there, that maybe my, whatever I'm feeling currently is not so wrong. But yeah, if you ask me to choose Indian cricket team, I'll fail at it.
Anuj, tell me, in your kind of company, how do you look at the point where you have to take a right or a left? How do you what factors come into play that guide you that now is the turn to to take a different course? And how do you get those insights? Where do you get the insights from?
So, like for the audience, I would say that Healthy Shore is a full stack group healthcare platform. So what we do is we aggregate insurance and healthcare programs and democratize it for organizations as small as 2 employees to as large as 10,000. Now, since we are deliberating on this important topic of navigating these inflection points, so whether taking a right or a left, it's critically around the strategy or the focal point that you want to drive into the future. Yes, tactically, you face this question almost every day. But yeah, there it's more about what makes sense to you as a team and at an organization level and at a consumer level. When it is about, you could say, driving the strategy and future course of the business, that is when whether taking this right or a left would critically matter. So I believe that every organization goes fundamentally through 4 different phases. One is a 0 to 1 phase. One is 1 to 10, 10 to 100, and 100 to 1000. So when you are taking a right or a left, you should think about it at what stage are you at. That is very critical, because everyone would be, you could say, inclined to do something which is very, very futuristic. But you need to take a pause back and say that whether this is relevant for you in the journey phase that you are at. To be very honest, we are in that 1 to 10x journey, and we are nearing about that 10x journey. So we need to be mindful that at the stage that we are at, it's very circumstantial that whether it suits us to take a right or a left. Maybe we would want to take a right had we been in the 10 to 100 journey, but in the 1 to 10 journey, we can always experiment, fail, innovate, and that's how we continue to be relevant. So that's my short answer. There's no correct approach. It would all be dependent on the stage of your business.
So there's nothing like one size fits all. It's very contextual to the business, to the founder, and to the age of the business. That's what you're saying. Gautam, it's not just the numbers and the feedback alone that will decide how you navigate those changes, but also the mindset of the founder. If you have any example also, I would like to, I'd like you to also share that with us, that when you had to make a decision and your mind was, of course, in favor of it and your heart was not, or the other way around, how have you dealt with such challenges or such situations when it comes to changing tracks?
Okay. Different stages of the journey, different answers. So when you're starting off, the company or the startup is actually the DNA of the founder. And every decision is reflecting your culture, your decision making, everything. Now, as you grow and scale up, you have a larger team, you professionalize. Obviously, okay, democracy, I'll be beaten up for this, is good to a limited extent.
Let's face it, I think let's actually call it out. I think there are a lot of fancy words, lovely quotations written around big corporates, but the practice is very different,
Very
right?
different.
And let's accept it. I think we should not really shy away from accepting
Exactly.
it. Right?
So we follow a principle which I was taught by one of my earlier bosses, was decision when I close the door. Nobody moves out. 4 of us sitting, we'll decide. I may be against what we decide in the end, but once I walk out of the room, I have to buy in equally. And I can't, and if we fail, we can't go back, or at least I can't go back and say, boss, maine mana kiya tha. So that's the process we followed for a long period of time. Then as you scale up further, you get more stakeholders in the game, you get partners, you get investors. Then the decision making becomes a little more democratic, board pe jayega. So different stages, different answers. But yeah, when you're starting off early in the business, your DNA is reflecting the DNA of the company. It's as simple as that. And if you were the one who came with the conviction on the ideas, backing it with all your life, your effort, then I think go for it. I mean, don't, because people are going to be naysayers, and I'll be very candid about it. And most founders would have faced it. You'll find naysayers within your circle, within extended family, everywhere in the world. But you have to stay true to your DNA, build it into the company, and go for it.
So navigating pivots is also navigating a lot of naysayers and, not losing that belief, of course. Anuj, Arnab, any live example of where you have faced a situation, you had to take a call and you had mixed reactions to things. It was challenging for you. Have you ever been through that?
Yeah, actually, I think quite often we kind of, are in that crossroad. I mean, as I was saying that there's a company that I run for almost 10 years now. So it's in that phase where it's kind of gotten professionalized. There are a lot of people from outside who have come in, and therefore they have their own virtues. I think one of the things that we have created is a framework, and so therefore we are not really dependent on decision making every time. It's a very simple technique that we follow. We use a model called MPH, which is meritocratic, pragmatic, and honest. So at any point in time, every decision kind of gets qualified with all these 3 things. That is that person. Suppose it's about giving somebody appraisal or kind of a growth which has never happened. So it automatically identifies whether that person is the most meritocratic person we have in the system. Is that the most pragmatic decision we are taking, and and are we being absolutely honest about it? So somewhere we feel that if we can create models, then you are not really sticking to every time decisions and the mood of the people in the room.
Anuj, can one be clinical about the pivot part of it? I mean, is it easier to deal with the mind and the heart being on opposite sides?
Yep. So one tough part of being a founder is that you'll always be emotional about what you've built, and you can't see that losing out to something that you've not thought of. So, but the hard reality is that you have to be practical about things, and you really need to see that what is it that the market really appreciates and values. So I guess you would need to be very adaptive to the changing market situations. But yes, at end of it, the ultimate DNA should be that you have to build a sustainable, scalable business. And the changing market circumstances or the changing consumer preferences is something that you should definitely be open to about tweaking your business model or tweaking your strategy. And at end of day, that someone rightly says, right, we learn it about in our marketing schools that if you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else will do. So don't miss out on the opportunity which is there out in the open. You've identified, but you want to be emotionally attached to what you've built. You have to be practical about navigating and adapting to the changing market.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. Gautam, let me ask you something which we were debating in the room as well. But these conversations, I mean, are not often spoken about, and which are real. Which is about when we talk about navigating inflection points, all of that, it's all directed to profits. End of the day. While as I think somewhere the startups were also meant to do, there has to be a considerable social impact. What is wrong with the startup culture that is prevalent right now? Do you think we can move just beyond the money part of it and also look at the impact part of it? How can we are a great success story of startups, but it's all high up in the pyramid. The effect is not fell down. How can we change that?
So I think there is a segment of startups which is working on social impact. There are quite a few of them actually, and there are funds available which are very long term available to them to make that impact, and they're clearly focused over there. I think the biggest name that comes to my mind is Omidyar Networks. They clearly impact based, right? Now coming to the other side of the spectrum where typically the B2B, B2C, D2C startups operate, the typical market that we'll always try to capture, all of us fall to that fallacy, is this tier 1, tier 2, chalo Delhi, Bangalore chalte hain, the funding is available, the market is available, the customer will pay a little bit more. And something which I've learned now, especially in our business, is it is a fallacy. So today it's very fashionable to say India versus Bharat, right? So Bharat ki story true hai boss, and it's true. And you can build very long-term sustainable models which have deep impact on the society over there, whilst being more profitable than being in tier 1, tier 2. In our example, it's very simple. When I go to a large industry and say, boss, fuel, he says, kitna discount, kitna credit. When I go to a farmer, he doesn't talk about that. He says, boss, 20 of us give this pipa, they call it a pipa, a can, to one guy who takes it on a tractor, goes 10-15 kilometers, brings diesel for all of us. Now, can you change that for him? And he will appreciate it, and he will not ask you for a discount as well as credit. Now, you can build a model over there where you can impact their lives as well. You can create CSR initiatives, you can do plantation, you can do whatever you want. But yes, there is a world outside which exists, which is ready to be tapped. It's a fallacy that it's not profitable. It is profitable. It's about how much profit you want to take over it, how much you want to leave back. There is deep impact over there. And that's something we as a company have been trying to do for last at least 2.5 years. We've not gotten there yet. We getting close to it. I think one of our friends in the audience, we tried working with him also to enter a state in Eastern India and make that impact in villages. How do you get the first 5 kilometers? How do you get the next 10 kilometers? How do you get the next 15 kilometers? How do you make that impact easily achievable? How do you empower the sarpanches to be able to create that model and create income for them? It is doable. It needs a little bit of effort. It needs us to roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty and get there.
So you're saying Bharat has its own, success to offer, opportunities to offer, which we don't understand from the India perspective, right?
I think tier 2 has more to offer than tier 1. Tier 3 has more to offer than tier 2. And the real India has more to offer than all of this. So every day of our strategy session, discussion, the only thing we talk about is, boss, tier 1 se bahar nikal. We need to go to tier 2, tier 3. The biggest competitors in India are lying in tier 1. Even if I have to compete with a large giant, and in my industry, everybody knows who's the giant, right? And at the moment, we are pivoting. I actually have a brilliant example of a guy who did this very well. Burger Singh. I think everybody's heard about it. He doesn't know me.
Not heard, I've eaten also.
He doesn't know me. I've seen his pitch also. Brilliant. And he pivoted his model very early. He left tier 1, went to tier 2, tier 3. Today, he's the second largest burger chain in India. Very few people know about it. He's targeting to become number 1, and he refuses to touch tier 1 unless and until necessity. So the real India is offering you less competition and more scalability, and you can create an impact.
Right. Anub, I mean, there are a lot of, I mean, there's a question also in his answers. The Bharat part one is that how can we build a culture of impact apart from profit making in the startup world? Second, what he spoke about the India and the Bharat story. How far do you agree in the category that you're operating in?
Sure. So in our business, we say in God we trust, everybody else bring data. And I have to agree with him. So we essentially started our business, and I'm just talking about Digibox currently because it's primarily priced for India and also speaks 8 other languages than English. And we were surprised to know that the way Hindi speaking languages states and few other language speaking states picked up the product, right? And so that essentially tells me that there is a significant amount of interest from people outside who are looking at tier 1 and saying, hey, there is a solution that is specifically crafted for us. So I think there is a lot of merit in feeding into that aspiration. And that aspiration is very different because there is a line. So whether it's fashion or not, yes, India and Bharat is true, this entire differentiation. And the way they look at in solutions that is available for tier 1 cities, they strongly feel that that's not customized and not feeding into their expectations. So in fact, what we have done at Digibox is we've actually hired a lot of people who are working for us from those regions. Okay, and unfortunately enough, you can be a BTech in any part of the country. So we have literally hired engineer from those parts, and those, the way they give us insights, the way they make things, make people use Digibox in some village, where there is, and honestly, we are also getting better at it because the internet connection is different. The way they use is different. The way their expectations are from our product is different. To answer your question, I think for both, I think I completely agree that it's a separate market that exists, and that's where the number is. So
Wonderful. So you're saying looking at Bharat itself is a huge inflection point, itself, right? I mean, just looking at that side of the opportunity. Anuj, what is your take on creating impact apart from profit? And are you catering to the Bharat story? Does the India, the opportunities here allow you to pivot and look at the Bharat story as well?
So I would say it's a wonderful question for us. So when we started out Healthy Short, the real problem statement that we saw is that people in the country are far uninsured. So you would see that out of the total population that we have, less than 5% of the population actually holds an insurance in personal capacity. About 10% hold an insurance through their organization, and the remaining 25% comes through the government in forms of social security schemes. Now, who is building for that missing middle of 60%? And that is where we stepped in. We realized that if India were to become secure, and that is, you could say, a basic tenet towards India becoming a developed country 30 years down the line, which is what government's target is, right? They want insurance inclusion for all. But can the government do it for everyone? Answer is no. So we started with this vision that how do we make insurance fractionalized, accessible, simple, and convenient for a micro enterprise as small as 2 employees to access it. And that's how we started the journey. And we've gotten to a scale aggregating the stakeholders and designing our, you could say, distribution strategy as such that we know that from now, if we were to deliver it to the entire Bharat, we cannot do it all by ourselves. And that is where we have, you could say, the classic word of pivot. So we are pivoting into a new direction where we are powering the entire distribution infrastructure for brokers, agents, banks, B2B fintechs to adopt our white labeled infrastructure. In fact, we may even rebrand ourselves to say Bharat Sure, where we want to build it for the real Bharat, where the entire infrastructure is accessible and democratized for the distribution channel so that they can serve the end masses. So for us, when it comes to insurance, it's a very personal subject. And here it's more of an infra play that serves the market than doing it all by yourself. And when it comes to impact, the impact is driven by way of driving that social security for everyone, driving that sense of inclusivity. So that is the impact that we are driving.
So Rohil, here's a pivot for you. So he's selling insurance for big agencies, right? I'm selling fuel and sourcing it from big companies. They have CSR spend to do, right? They don't go last mile. We go last mile. They can partner with us. We can be the distributors.
Here's a business opportunity that you created. Absolutely.
That's the pivot.
Gautam, also all that pivot and all is fine, but you cannot do it alone without taking the entire organization, with it. They have to match the sentiment that the founders have. Whenever you're making these big changes and suddenly all your investors have invested, and I mean, you promised something, but then you figured out that I need to now shift. How do you take your investors on board and the team on board, and ensure that everybody matches the passion and the sentiment? Is it also real, or one has to actually find a way of doing it?
Okay, so the way we handle the investor side of it is one, it's complete transparency, but we don't go to them with an idea till the time, or we don't take it to the board till the time we found a PMF, a product market fit. And what we typically do is, so today we are looking at the EV space very aggressively, and we have a couple of ideas on it. One probably we're going to launch within the next 1.5 months, but a very small team, focused team working on it, but they don't work on it for 6-9 months. They work on a very clear small product, test it in the market, keep changing it, and then one day we finally come out and say, boss, this is ready to scale. That's when we go back and we've got a product to show, we've got a service to show for it, and we've got a business plan around it. And that's how you buy them in. The amount of money spent is very small because we haven't spent 9 months building the product. Even if you look at the tech manpower cost, that's adding up, right? So that's how we do that side of it. Now coming to buying the team in, it was fairly, so we've scaled up a bit. So it was fairly simpler. If you would ask me 1.5, 2 years back, it's like a speedboat. You want to turn directions where you ho gaya boss. The same thing when we were trying to do in Jan-Feb this year and we were getting ready for the April financial year, it really felt like, you're changing the Titanic's direction. Or 2 saal ke baad yahi ho raha. Boss, what happened in 2023 was simpler than today. But something that I learned from the auto industry was we created these war rooms. So we created a war room for 2 months and brought the whole team into the war room. What that does is over a period of time, and it takes time. It just won't happen ki boss maine bola to kar do. The guy, if he doesn't buy onto it, ground reality is going to be different. Your strategy has to be aligned from top to the bottom guy in the organization. If it's not aligned, you're not going to hit it. So these war rooms help us aligning the strategy because people start seeing it was Rohil ka to result aa gaya, Gautam ka nahi aa raha. So let's start aligning. That's how we do it. And again, as I said, we're changing our model very significantly on the distribution side, on the franchisee side, and now we started seeing results. The whole team's bought it.
So it takes some convincing, for everyone to fall in the line, right?
Yeah. You have to create heroes within your organization. So when we talk about product companies, they'll talk about we have 10 SKUs, right? We have one hero product. What we believe in is we have 10 leaders. We want to create one hero leader. Just then wo hero leader banta hai na, everybody else. So you have to work hard in creating it. Once that's done, then everybody buys it.
Right. Arnab, how do you align your teams when you're making that big shift? I mean, is it easy? Is it tough? How do you ensure it?
So I think it again is a function of the life cycle of the company, right? I mean, depending on at what part of your journey you are in, and what kind of movement you've had in a significant direction. So for in one of our companies, I can give you an example of not going into specifics. But what we have done is we keep on a strong believer of this fact of the vision, mission, and values, right? VMV as they call it. I think it is extremely important that we get our leadership team and we actually kind of put the vision, values in front of us, and we deliberate and discuss that. Are we still on course with this, or is there anything that has changed, right? And with those, and we typically invite people from outside to conduct those kind of workshops, for us. And quite often than not, we actually see whether we are sticking to it or we have kind of deviated. And whenever we have deviated, either we have brought them back to the course, or we have made the adjustments. But again, I think it's extremely important that it is not a autocratic decision. You actually involve a lot of people, and a scientific approach that the way you're doing it is correct, and then everybody buy in. Because the moment everybody buys in, I think that's when the magic happens.
Wonderful. Anuj, your quick take on working with the team side when you are disrupting your product offerings, or or getting in a new offering. So how do you align your teams, build the same kind of sentiment in them? Like how Gautam said, a speedboat it'll be quicker, but then a ship would take time. So how does it happen, and how do you ensure that it happens?
So I would say that in our organization, we would always welcome disruptions. They help you get on your toes and start rethinking about what you are building. And that is an important mindset to build, that disruptions are necessary for, as I said in the beginning as well, for you to continue staying relevant. So today, whenever there are any disruptions in terms of, you could say, a new product line that we are building or new distribution strategy that we are building. So it's, as Gautam highlighted, that for us, it's very easy because we are navigating a speedboat at the moment. So we can do it much easier because we have a very flat structure in terms of the team. So it helps us to just align our, you could say, functional leads first, followed by us aligning the wider team. We would do a town hall possibly every 6 months. We would do, you could say, a weekly catch-up call, which gives the team a continued direction as to how is the business shaping up. So it is for the team to own up that responsibility to continue adapting to how the business is shaping out and what direction it is moving into.
So,
All right.
Rohil, I'd like to add one thing. I'll take 30 seconds of your time. One thing we keep an eye on is no brainstorming sessions that should be hours long. So
Brainstorming session should be 10 minutes.
it should be pura hati ek din mein nahi khana, boss. It's not possible. Let's cut it into bite-sized problems and solve for it. So, and the rule is, if a problem and a solution can't fit on one page, don't write it down. It's not worth it. If you can't finish the meeting in 15 to 30 minutes, don't start it. You have to go in and get out. Otherwise, the boss better on 5 o'clock se leke drinks or dinner bhi wahi ho raha hoga. So that's very important. And that's the difference between a bureaucratic organization and a lean, agile startup. And that's the clear difference.
So I have roughly 1 minute, 2 minutes. Quickly, I'll come from you. So 2 quick tips for startup, founders about navigating change.
Change is necessary. I fundamentally believe in one thing. Strategy is not static. It's dynamic. You have to keep changing with the times, with the environment, with the changing scenario, macroeconomic environment. Second, I believe there's no strategy without numbers. We use these big words and big jargons and everything. Boss, reality, cut the clutter, come to the point, fix the problem, move on. That's what we believe in.
Arnab,
In business, there is no you and I. There's only we. Don't start by having a director's washroom in your office. Go to the same washroom that everybody uses. You will know exactly the problem of the company.
and that's very prevalent in the startup world, but I mean, the corporate world is still, coming out of it and learning from the startup world. Yeah. Anuj.
I would say that, change is the only constant. As I said before, if you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else would do. So make sure that you continue to stay ahead of your competition. You are pioneering something that the others in the industry would want to follow suit.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, so one of the focuses, the key takeaways is that startups need to look at the Bharat story. I mean, they are not going to that side. They are obsessed with the India part, and the opportunity is on that side. So great. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. We have another session lined up, and great having you here. Thank you so much. Yeah.